Some millionaires prove money can buy cars, mansions, and even pet tigers. But what it can't buy is common sense. From lottery winners who blew fortunes overnight to celebrities who thought they could outsmart the tax man with llamas, these are the dumbest millionaires in America. Each story is crazier than the last, and by the time you hear number 49, you'll be thanking the universe you don't have millions to waste. Let's dive in. 1. A wealthy businessman once attended an exclusive art auction where critics raved about groundbreaking conceptual pieces. One item in particular caught his eye, an invisible sculpture said to capture the spiritual energy of its creator. There was nothing there but empty space, yet the bidding war was fierce. Believing he was securing a piece of history, he proudly spent $18,000 for what was literally nothing. He held parties to showcase the masterpiece, guiding guests to stare at an empty corner of his mansion. Some clapped politely, others laughed behind his back, but the money was gone forever. 2. One eccentric millionaire was convinced his beloved poodle had supernatural abilities. After attending a dog psychic session, he became obsessed with the idea that his pet could communicate with the dead. The psychic, seeing dollar signs, offered him a partnership to expand the business worldwide. Over the next year, he poured $150,000 into crystal balls, velvet drapes, and advertising campaigns. His friends were horrified, but he defended the idea passionately. By the time he realized the psychic had vanished with his money, his dog was still the same: loyal, loving, and definitely not a medium. 3. For one millionaire, wealth wasn't real unless he could literally sit on it. He spent over $5 million covering every bathroom fixture in his mansion with gold. Toilets, sinks, faucets, even the towel racks. He proudly nicknamed the property the Palace of Gold and gave guests long tours of his bathrooms. But when the housing market dipped, he tried to sell the house for double what he paid. Realtors couldn't convince buyers to pay millions extra for a bathroom that looked like King Midas's restroom. His mansion sat unsold for years until he finally gave it up at a massive loss. 4. Inspired by exotic animal collectors, one wealthy man decided he too needed lions and tigers roaming his backyard. He spent millions building cages, importing animals, and bragging about his private zoo. At first, friends were impressed, until they saw the feeding bills. It cost thousands every week to keep the animals alive. When his finances crumbled, he couldn't pay for meat, medicine, or maintenance. Authorities stepped in, the animals were seized, and his neighbors breathed a sigh of relief. He went from the king of the jungle to broke overnight, proving tigers are better at eating fortunes than steak. 5. A Silicon Valley entrepreneur once spent $300,000 buying a real dinosaur skeleton for his living room. He bragged about it as the centerpiece of his mansion, throwing cocktail parties where guests sipped champagne under the shadow of a T-Rex skull. But the dinosaur brought more trouble than class. His wife, furious that their home looked like a museum, demanded he sell it. When he refused, she filed for divorce and asked for half of everything, including half the dinosaur. Lawyers joked about splitting the T-Rex down the middle. In the end, the dinosaur outlasted his marriage. 6. One entrepreneur dreamed of flying high, so he bought himself a private jet worth $25 million. But instead of hiring a pilot, he insisted he could learn it himself. He spent months posting photos from the cockpit, pretending he was in control, while professionals shook their heads. The reality? He never passed a single flying lesson. 6 months later, the jet was repossessed because he couldn't keep up with the maintenance fees, hangar charges, and insurance. The dream of owning the skies ended with him grounded, broke, and embarrassed. He never even left the runway. 7. One lottery winner in the US walked away with $80 million and managed to burn through every last cent in under 3 years. His spending list read like a child's fantasy mixed with a disaster. A Lamborghini painted like a zebra, a nightclub shaped like a UFO, and even a diamond-encrusted slingshot he swore would be the future of sports. He hosted parties where he bought drinks for entire clubs, showering strangers with $100 bills. But when the money ran out, so did the friends. One day his credit card was declined at a gas station, and suddenly the man who once lived like a king was begging relatives for rent money. 8. Another eccentric millionaire thought he had discovered the future of family entertainment. A cat circus. He invested millions into training cats to juggle, balance on yoga balls, and even dance in little tutus. His grand opening had lights, music, and a full audience expecting Cirque du Soleil with fur. Instead, the cats did what cats always do. They ignored every command. One jumped into the audience, another curled up mid-act and took a nap, and several wandered off stage entirely. The show was a total disaster, shutting down after 3 weeks. The millionaire lost everything, while the cats walked away perfectly content with free toys and endless food. 9. A retired athlete turned millionaire decided the best way to spend his fortune was by buying not 1, but 20 Ferraris. His idea of fun? Smashing them in drag races with his friends. He called it extreme fun, but his accountant called it financial suicide. Each car cost hundreds of thousands, and within months they were reduced to twisted metal and scrap. Insurance companies refused to cover the reckless destruction, leaving him with nothing but garage bills. The man who once inspired fans on the field became a cautionary tale about how fast money burns when your playground is made of Ferraris. 10. One tech investor dreamed of owning his own empire, so he bought an entire ghost town in the middle of the desert, convinced he could turn it into a luxury resort. He spent tens of millions building fake saloons, paving dusty roads, and marketing it as the next Las Vegas. The problem? No water, no real infrastructure, and no interest. Guests quickly realized the only thing the town offered was overpriced cocktails and tumbleweeds. Within 2 years, his investment collapsed, and he was left with the most expensive sandpit in America. Even the coyotes refused to move in. 11. A Wall Street trader became obsessed with Beanie Babies in the late 90s, convinced they would be worth billions one day. He spent over $4 million buying thousands of plush toys, carefully sealing them in protective cases and storing them in climate-controlled warehouses. He bragged that his collection would outlast stocks, bonds, and even gold. Decades later, the toys are worth pennies on the dollar, and his collection now costs more in storage fees than it would ever sell for. Friends joke that he's the only man who could go bankrupt from hoarding teddy bears. 12. One eccentric millionaire thought he could build his own Disneyland right in his backyard. He poured money into roller coasters, bumper cars, and cotton candy machines, transforming his property into a private theme park. At first, neighbors thought it was amusing, but the noise, flashing lights, and constant chaos soon sparked complaints. City officials fined him repeatedly for zoning violations, and maintenance costs drained his fortune faster than ticket sales could ever recover. In the end, the park was dismantled piece by piece, leaving behind an empty yard and a millionaire who learned the hard way that fun isn't always profitable. 13. Another lottery winner believed generosity would buy him loyalty. He started handing out houses to strangers he met in bars, claiming he wanted to change lives. Within months, he had purchased dozens of homes for people who promised friendship in return. But as soon as the money dried up, so did the friendships. The strangers disappeared, leaving him alone and bankrupt. Worse, he discovered many of the homes were sold immediately, with the buyers pocketing the profits. His dream of building a loyal circle of friends collapsed, proving that blind generosity can be just as destructive as greed. 14. A reality TV star decided she needed to outshine her rivals by buying a bathtub made entirely of diamonds. The price tag? $10 million. She posed for magazine shoots and Instagram selfies, calling it the ultimate luxury. But the sparkle came with problems. Burglars attempted break-ins, insurers refused coverage, and fans mocked her for bathing in something most people couldn't afford to look at. Within a year, she was forced to sell it at a huge loss. The bathtub that was meant to make her a legend ended up being the purchase that drained her fame and her fortune. 15. In one of the strangest examples of wasted wealth, a tech CEO decided he could not live without cloning his beloved pet iguana. He paid scientists over $100,000 to attempt the experiment, convinced it would revolutionize pet ownership. The cloning failed spectacularly, but the man still introduced the lizard as his investment in the future at parties. Guests tried not to laugh as he bragged about the reptile that looked exactly the same as any other iguana from a pet shop. In the end, he lost his money and his credibility, while the iguana just wanted lettuce. 16. A young millionaire who made his fortune in tech thought he could outsmart everyone by investing in a scheme to mine asteroids. Yes, actual asteroids. He poured millions into a startup that promised to bring back gold and diamonds from space. The problem? They didn't even have a working rocket. For years, he bragged about owning future space gold, showing slideshows of glowing meteors at fancy dinners. But when the company folded, he realized he had literally spent his millions on pictures of rocks floating in space. His investors called it the most expensive science fiction subscription in history. 17. Another millionaire became obsessed with owning the rarest animals on Earth, so he purchased a panda from an underground dealer, believing it would make him the envy of high society. What he actually bought was a large Chow Chow dog dyed black and white. For months, he proudly paraded it around until experts pointed out that pandas don't bark. The embarrassment spread across tabloids worldwide, and the poor man had to return his panda and admit he'd spent hundreds of thousands on a fraud. The dog, however, found a loving home, unlike its gullible former owner. 18. One Hollywood producer turned his wealth into a passion project, a movie starring himself as a superhero. He spent nearly $50 million hiring special effects crews, stunt teams, and even commissioned his own action figures. The movie was so bad that theaters pulled it after opening weekend, with critics calling it the most expensive vanity project ever filmed. Instead of becoming the next Iron Man, he became the punchline of every late-night comedy show. His mansion still had boxes of unsold DVDs stacked in the garage, a daily reminder that money can't buy talent or humility. 19. A real estate tycoon once decided he would achieve immortality through cryonics. He spent millions on a private laboratory, cryo chambers, and a team of so-called scientists who promised to freeze him until medicine could cure death. Unfortunately, he forgot to plan for electricity bills, staffing, and maintenance. When the facility shut down due to unpaid power, his million-dollar chambers thawed into nothing but giant puddles. His dream of eternal life melted in front of his eyes, and the story spread across news outlets as the billion-dollar freezer fail. He proved you can waste money not only in life, but in death too. 20. One eccentric millionaire believed he had discovered a business goldmine by bottling luxury air. He marketed it as the purest oxygen from mountain peaks, packaged in glass jars, and sold it for hundreds of dollars each. At first, influencers bought it as a joke, snapping selfies with the expensive jars. But within months, sales tanked, lawsuits piled up, and regulators shut him down for selling nothing but ordinary air. His warehouse full of overpriced jars became a tourist attraction in itself, a monument to how easily money can be wasted on things most people get for free every day. 21. One young millionaire thought he could make history by creating the world's most expensive sandwich. He hired celebrity chefs, imported ingredients from every continent, and even had edible gold flakes sprinkled on top. The cost? Over $25,000 for a single bite. He filmed himself eating it for social media, expecting applause, but instead he was roasted online as the dumbest foodie alive. Restaurants mocked him with parodies, and critics tore apart his ego faster than he devoured that sandwich. In the end, the sandwich digested in a day, but the humiliation followed him for years. 22. A wealthy businessman became obsessed with immortality and paid scientists to create a custom diet of nothing but exotic smoothies made from rare fruits. He imported mangosteens from Asia, cloudberries from Scandinavia, and even dragon fruit flown in by private jet daily. The cost was staggering, over $2 million a year just on fruit. His neighbors watched in disbelief as crates of produce arrived every morning. When doctors finally examined him, they discovered he was actually malnourished. He spent millions trying to live forever, only to nearly ruin his health with overpriced fruit shakes. 23. Another millionaire blew his fortune on building the perfect yacht. It wasn't just big. It had a bowling alley, a movie theater, and even a mini submarine attached underneath. The price tag crossed $500 million. But when he invited guests for the maiden voyage, the engines failed mid-trip, and the yacht had to be towed back to shore. The maintenance costs alone were in the millions every month, draining his bank account until he had to sell it at a loss. His luxury boat turned into a sinking reminder that size doesn't equal smart. 24. One eccentric millionaire thought it would be impressive to buy the world's largest diamond and cut it into jewelry for his pet parrots. Yes, parrots. He designed custom diamond collars and rings to hang from their cages. He invited the press to photograph his royal birds, but instead of awe, he received ridicule. The parrots shredded the decorations within days, scattering millions of dollars in jewels across the floor. Jewelers refused to repair the mess, and the story became headline news. Millionaire outshined by his own parrots. 25. A retired millionaire wanted to relive his youth by recreating his favorite video game in real life. He hired a construction crew to build a replica of a Mario-style obstacle course, complete with lava pits, giant mushrooms, and coin blocks. He spent tens of millions creating it on his estate, but quickly learned real humans can't jump like video game characters. Injuries piled up, lawsuits followed, and the attraction closed before it even officially opened. His dream of becoming super millionaire Mario ended with him bankrupt and mocked as a man who tried to turn pixels into reality. 26. A celebrity chef who struck it rich decided to invent a new food craze: glow-in-the-dark pizza. He poured millions into researching edible fluorescent ingredients, promising it would be the next Instagram sensation. When the pizzas finally debuted, they looked radioactive and tasted like chalk. Health inspectors shut him down within a week, declaring the food unsafe. He lost his fortune, his reputation, and his restaurant empire, all for trying to make pizza sparkle like a nightclub. Customers joked that the only thing glowing was his stupidity. 27. One millionaire collector decided his legacy would be the world's greatest toy collection. He bought every action figure, comic book, and limited edition doll he could find, spending over $30 million in a decade. He built a custom vault with laser security just to store them. But when the collection went up for auction, experts revealed most of his toys were cheap fakes. The man who bragged about owning priceless treasures had actually been swindled by online scammers. His $30 million empire turned out to be worth a few $100 at best. 28. A tech mogul became obsessed with reinventing fashion. He hired designers to create clothing made entirely from precious metals: gold jackets, silver pants, and platinum shoes. They were heavy, uncomfortable, and outrageously expensive. He modeled them at events, sweating miserably while struggling to walk. Critics laughed him off runways, calling it robot chic. The clothes eventually oxidized and crumbled, proving they weren't even practical. His dream of becoming a fashion icon ended in embarrassment, with photographs of his metallic wardrobe failures becoming endless internet memes. 29. A music-loving millionaire tried to launch a record label, but instead of signing talented artists, he only signed himself. He spent millions producing albums, music videos, and even paid radio stations to play his songs. Unfortunately, his voice was so bad that listeners turned off stations in protest. Concerts were empty, critics shredded his performances, and his label folded after 1 year. The only hit he ever had was the hit his bank account took from funding his fantasy. His failure became a standing joke in the industry. 30. Finally, one millionaire thought he had the ultimate invention: a hotel staffed entirely by robots. He spent hundreds of millions creating mechanical bellhops, robotic chefs, and talking machines for room service. At first, it was hailed as the future of hospitality. But within months, the robots malfunctioned, caught fire, and even trapped guests inside their rooms. Lawsuits poured in, the hotel shut down, and the once wealthy owner was left with nothing but a warehouse full of broken machines. His dream of automation turned into one of the most expensive tech disasters of all time. 31. One millionaire wanted to make history by creating the world's smartest mansion. He hired engineers to install AI systems that controlled everything: lights, doors, even the toilets. But the technology backfired. Guests were locked inside bathrooms, sprinklers turned on during dinner parties, and the house randomly blasted heavy metal music at 3 a.m. The project cost him over $100 million, but the mansion was so chaotic no one would buy it. Eventually, he abandoned the property, which locals called the haunted smart house, proving even millions can't fix a dumb idea. 32. a former child star turned millionaire, decided to prove her spiritual devotion by building a giant golden pyramid in her backyard. She claimed it gave her cosmic energy and would preserve her wealth forever. The pyramid cost over $20 million and required demolishing 3 neighboring houses just to make space. Neighbors sued, the city fined her, and the pyramid quickly became a local tourist joke. Instead of cosmic energy, all she got was endless debt and a new nickname in the press, the Pharaoh of Failure. 33. One eccentric tech billionaire spent millions designing a fleet of personal submarines shaped like giant rubber ducks. He wanted to make the ocean fun again and promised families would buy them like yachts. Investors laughed him out of meetings, and when he tried to launch them at a marina, they capsized instantly. The image of a grown man weeping as bright yellow duck submarines sank in the harbor went viral worldwide. His idea never took off, and the only thing that floated was the joke at his expense. 34. A young millionaire heiress tried to reinvent luxury dining by launching a restaurant where everything on the menu was made of chocolate. Steaks, pasta, even salads. At first, people were curious, but soon they realized eating nothing but chocolate for dinner was disgusting. Health inspectors cited her for unsafe food practices, and customers complained about stomach aches after meals. She lost nearly $30 million in the failed venture, and critics crowned it the most nauseating restaurant in America. Her attempt at culinary history ended as a cautionary tale. 35. One real estate mogul blew a fortune trying to create his own private island paradise. He imported sand, palm trees, and exotic birds to a barren rock in the ocean, believing it would become the next Monaco. But storms wiped away the sand, the trees withered, and the birds flew away. His multi-million-dollar Eden became nothing more than an empty rock with a half-finished villa. Locals called it Gilligan's Island for rich fools. He spent so much money trying to keep the island alive that he nearly bankrupted himself into oblivion. 36. A sports team owner decided to rebrand his franchise with what he called the boldest mascot in history. He spent millions creating a giant animatronic dragon that breathed fire during games. Unfortunately, the fire-breathing feature malfunctioned during its first show, setting the sidelines ablaze and injuring staff. Lawsuits followed, and the mascot was quietly retired. Fans still share memes of the burning dragon, calling it the mascot that bankrupted the boss. The owner's reputation never recovered, and his millions literally went up in smoke. 37. A wealthy businessman became obsessed with creating the world's tallest aquarium. He built a 40-story glass tower filled with exotic fish in the center of his luxury office building. Engineers warned it was unstable, but he refused to listen. Within months, the aquarium cracked, flooding several floors with salt water and fish. The cleanup cost millions. The building was condemned, and the man lost nearly everything. Locals nicknamed it the Great Fish Flood, and tourists still visit the ruins, not for the architecture, but for the story of one man's stubborn stupidity. 38. A retired millionaire thought he could buy credibility by entering politics. He spent more than $50 million of his own fortune running for mayor in a small town. He plastered his face on billboards, hired celebrities to endorse him, and threw lavish campaign parties. But when voting day came, he lost spectacularly, receiving less than 200 votes. His opponent, a local school teacher, crushed him with grassroots support. The man had spent $50 million to win nothing but humiliation. Reporters crowned him the most expensive loser in history. 39. One eccentric millionaire tried to turn himself into a real-life superhero. He hired costume designers, martial arts instructors, and even a fleet of custom cars painted with his initials. He patrolled neighborhoods in his cape, hoping to stop crime. But instead, police arrested him for obstruction, and criminals mocked him online. His superhero identity became a meme, with kids dressing up as him for Halloween to make fun of him. Millions were spent, and his legacy was reduced to internet laughter. Turns out, Batman is cool, but Bankrupt Man is not. 40. Finally, a fashion-obsessed millionaire decided handbags were the future of investment. She bought over 3,000 designer purses, spending nearly $60 million over a decade. She bragged they would only increase in value, treating them like stocks. But when she tried to resell them, buyers weren't interested. The market was flooded, and her collection was worth a fraction of what she paid. News outlets ran headlines like "The Bag Lady Who Lost a Fortune," and her empire of leather and logos collapsed. She learned the hard way that purses can hold cash, but they can't make it grow. 41. A wealthy entrepreneur believed he could revolutionize farming by creating glow-in-the-dark cows. He invested millions into genetic experiments, imagining fields of neon animals lighting up the night. Scientists warned him it wasn't practical, but he ignored them. After years of spending, all he had were a few cows with strange health problems and lawsuits from animal rights groups. The dream of glowing livestock turned into a nightmare, and his millions disappeared. The only thing glowing was the neon sign outside his lab that read "Closed." 42. One millionaire decided he would conquer space travel privately. He designed a homemade rocket, painted it gold, and invited reporters to watch the launch from his estate. Guests sipped champagne as he counted down, only for the rocket to fizzle, tip sideways, and explode on the lawn. The clip went viral as the dumbest launch in history. Instead of joining NASA's Hall of Fame, he became the butt of every internet meme. He lost millions, scorched his property, and burned up whatever credibility he had left. 43. A fashion-obsessed heiress thought the world needed perfumes inspired by luxury moments. She launched a fragrance line with scents like first-class airplane seat, new credit card, and even freshly opened safe. She spent tens of millions on marketing, but customers found the smells disgusting. Reviewers joked that one bottle smelled like burnt leather mixed with cleaning spray. The line collapsed in months, and warehouses were filled with unsellable bottles. Instead of making history as a fashion icon, she became known as the woman who bottled the stench of stupidity. 44. A tech investor wanted to leave his mark by creating a theme park based on taxes. Yes, taxes. He built attractions like the Audit Roller Coaster and Refund Maze. He believed families would flock to learn through fun, but kids hated it, and parents demanded refunds. The rides broke constantly, and the park closed within a year. He had wasted nearly $400 million creating the most boring theme park in history. His idea of fun with finance ended with bankruptcy, proving that no child ever begged their parents to ride the depreciation Ferris wheel. 45. One eccentric millionaire became convinced mermaids were real. He spent millions funding expeditions, hiring divers, and creating underwater labs. He even built a private submarine shaped like a seashell. After years of searching, the only things he found were dolphins, coral, and his drained bank account. Critics called him the king of fishy investments. The submarine eventually rusted away in a dock, and his name went down in history not for discovering mermaids, but for drowning in his own delusion. 46. A wealthy celebrity chef decided regular restaurants weren't enough. He wanted to open a chain of eateries where customers ate meals while skydiving. He invested tens of millions in parachute gear, planes, and food that could be eaten midair. The first test run ended with spilled soup, lost silverware, and terrified customers. Regulators shut it down before opening day, citing safety risks. His millions fell faster than the parachutes, and his sky-dining dream became one of the most ridiculed food ideas in history. 47. Another millionaire tried to beat Las Vegas by building his own casino on a giant cruise ship. He decorated it with gold slot machines and diamond poker chips, believing gamblers would line up at sea. But storms kept scaring passengers, the ship leaked constantly, and running costs destroyed his fortune. Within months, the casino crews filed for bankruptcy, and the ship was seized by creditors. The man who wanted to outshine Vegas ended up sinking, both financially and literally. His casino at sea became a cautionary tale about gambling with millions. 48. One tech mogul thought he could merge luxury living with outer space. He designed a zero-gravity hotel floating in the stratosphere, promising billionaires they could sip champagne while hovering over Earth. Investors gave him millions, but the technology didn't exist. All he built was a gaudy lobby on the ground, decorated with fake planets and astronauts in costumes. Guests demanded refunds, investors sued, and the dream collapsed. He never launched into space, but his finances certainly crashed back to Earth. 49, finally, one of the dumbest millionaire disasters came from a man who wanted to clone himself. Not once, but 50 times. He believed he could build an empire by having armies of himself running businesses. He poured millions into shady labs overseas, only to be conned by fraudsters who delivered nothing but forged documents. When the truth came out, he was left broke, humiliated, and mocked across the world. His dream of creating a dynasty of clones turned into one of the greatest punchlines in millionaire history. And there you have it, 49 millionaires who proved money can buy cars, yachts, and even glowing cows. But it will never buy common sense. Some wasted fortunes chasing mermaids, others lost it all to invisible art or sandwiches that cost more than a car. In the end, these stories remind us that brains are priceless and stupidity is the most expensive luxury of all. Which one shocked you the most? Drop your answer in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more insane stories that prove truth is always stranger than fiction.